everybody, and welcome to the weekly scopes from the 27th of April until the 3rd of May. Hi everybody, and welcome to this week's weekly scopes. If you've heard this before, you can skip, but this is just the intro on how I formulate these astrology weekly readings. I use astrology and my intuition to give you advice how you can practically use the knowledge of the stars and the planets and apply them to your life. So my weekly scopes are all based on GMT time and on Vedic Constellational Astrology. So now I'm just going to explain what Vedic Constellational Astrology is and how it differs from Western astrology. So the precession of the equinox is sort of like something that happens in astronomy and astrology, where the Earth's axis undergoes a slow circular motion over 26,000 years, and basically this means that this motion causes a shift in the position of the equinoxes and also the calculation Vedic and Western astrologies use. So around 2,000 years ago, the tropical and sidereal Vedic astrology signs of astrology were aligned in the same position. So if the sun was in Scorpio in Vedic astrology, it was also in the constellation of Scorpio in Western astrology. But because of the precession of the equinoxes, this has caused a gradual westward sort of like drift of the tropical Western signs. So basically these signs and the Western signs shift 1 degree with every 72 years. So as a result of this ongoing shift, when Western astrology says the sun is in the constellation of Pisces, it's typically in the constellation of Aquarius. Still, this is because the degree, orb and the date for Western and Vedic astrology are 24 degrees, 24 days apart. So in Western astrology, the sun enters the constellation of Pisces around the 19th of February each year, but actually the sun doesn't arrive into the constellation of Pisces until the 13th to the 15th of March each year, and Vedic astrology takes this into account because it's based on the fixed star positions, and Vedic astrologers use sidereal calculations. So as a result, Vedic astrology takes into account the actual positions of the constellations in the sky at any given time, and also considers the precession of the equinox, adjusting for the shift in the position of the equinoxes over time. But in terms of Western astrology follows the tropical zodiac, which is based on the seasons rather than fixed star positions. Western astrologers also do not directly account for the precession of the equinox in their calculations as well, so this results in slightly different calculations and interpretations that are given whether we're using Western astrology or Vedic astrology. So yeah, as I said, Western astrology uses specific dates, so every year, regardless of where the sun actually is at the sky, the sun moves into Pisces around the 19th of February. So yeah, this discrepancy, this misalignment between the tropical zodiac and the actual positions of the constellations has led to a discrepancy between Vedic astrology and Western astrology. So I consider the actual where the sun and the moon are and where Mars and Venus are at any given time, and this is how I formulate these sort of like weekly scopes. So yeah, thanks for listening to this, and let's dive into this week's weekly scope. Okay, so now I'm just going to explain what parallels and contra parallels are in astrology, because I use them in my chart interpretation. So declination in astrology is the measure of how far a celestial body is, such as the sun, whether it's either north or south of the celestial equator. And the celestial equator is an imaginary line in the sky above the Earth's equator, which us astrologers use in our interpretation. So parallels happen when two planets are on the same declination, either both planets are on the north side side, or either both planets are on the south side, and this alignment increases the influence of the involved planets. So it's similar to a conjunction aspect, as it amplifies their energy, making the effects of the planets more pronounced. Contraparallels, on the other hand, happen when two planets are on the same declination, but one is in the north and one is in the south. So this alignment creates tension, which is similar to an opposition aspect, and it can lead to conflict, challenges and inner struggles between the energies of the planets involved. So contraparallels highlight areas of friction or contrast in our lives, urging us to find balance between the opposing forces at play. When transiting parallels and contraparallels happen, they can sort of like trigger significant events, shifting consciousness and periods of intense growth and transformation. So I look at these aspects closely during chart analysis to understand how planetary energies interact and influence each other during a specific time frame, to pinpoint key periods for personal development, relationship dynamics or career shifts, and other shifts like karmic shifts and stuff like that. Because I just find using contraparallels and parallels gives me more depth in interpretation, so I use them. So contraparallels and parallels in astrology serve as markers for potential challenges or breakthroughs, guiding us towards more self-awareness, love, acceptance, understanding, forgiveness for ourselves and others, and shifts in consciousness and growth. So overall, just a shift in our mindset if we allow for it. So parallels and contraparallels just kind of like provide valuable insights into the complexities and nuances of the astrological interactions between planetary movements. So yeah, that's the end of what contraparallels and parallels are. So this week we've got two aspects influencing us. We've got Mercury making a contraparallel to Saturn, when Mercury and Saturn are both in Pisces, and this entered on the 25th of April, is exact on the 29th of April, and leaves us on the 3rd of May. Uranus makes a set start to the Moon's North Node, and this is exact on the 2nd of May and leaves us on the 12th of May, and it entered on the 23rd of April, and Uranus is in Taurus and the Moon's North Node is in Pisces. So yeah, Mercury's contraparallel to Saturn allows us to go into our emotional depths in a stable, grounded way. It brings a complex interplay of energies that influence our communication, thought processes and emotional expressions this week as well. So, Saturn brings structured and disciplined thinking to, Pisces, emotional depth, intuition and imaginative capabilities. We may struggle with increased clarity and focus, but it allows for serious discussions and coming up with well-structured ideas and solutions to our problems, great for strategic planning and problem solving and thoughtful self-reflection. But negatively, we can have feelings of mental restriction, being sad, pessimistic and a tendency to over-analyse situations. And this can lead to miscommunications and misunderstandings. Psychologically, it encourages us and supports us to confront our mental barriers, the things that we say we can't do, our spiritual, emotional and psychological blockages. And when we say, oh, I'm too old, I can't do this now, I can never learn this, people like me don't do this or that, it wants us to confront those beliefs that we think are true about ourselves and ask ourselves why we think they're true. A lot of the time it's not true. It's, we can live our lives turning into self-fulfilling prophecies of things that maybe past teachers, our parents said, other friends and our bullies or whatever said us when we were childhood, what past lovers said, or heartbreaks and setbacks can just make us feel low and like we can't be who we want to be. So it wants us to take personal accountability for our emotions and really continue or start the work of dealing with our shadow selves, doing inner work, and really examining where we can change our thought patterns and the ways we relate toxically to ourselves and others, and just think about the ways we talk to ourselves. A lot of the time the thoughts in our mind are really negative and can really drown us, right? So, trying to get to the bottom of those and thinking of ways how we can, reduce those by bringing more positive thoughts. And we don't need to get rid of the negative altogether, but what we should do is to try and get realistic about what we can achieve. And often, the realism is not what society tells us to do or what our friends and family tell us to do. The people that make changes in the world, typically think and go outside of the box, right, and build their inner core or self-beliefs that get them to go ahead with their ideas. Spiritually, it builds our compassion and empathy and creativity this week and helps us understand our emotional words and increases our ability to communicate our feelings more effectively. And it just allows us to be honest, right, this week in our chatter and banter and reevaluate our beliefs and think about why we believe and think in the ways that we do, Often we're not even thinking what we truly think. We are thinking what we've been programmed to believe to be true about life and ourselves, right, as I said. So this energy this week really drives us and supports us in having that deeper connection to our inner selves. Uranus is set out to the moon's north node, allows us to align with our higher purpose this week, brings a sense of freedom and originality, and this can lead to breakthroughs in our personal and professional life. It allows us to set and establish and stick to new routines and habits that support our spiritual and other life goals, and it supports us in aligning our values, which is represented by the Taurus energy, with our dream and goals, right, which is represented by the Pisces energy. But we just need to watch out for, the unpredictability of Uranus can be challenging, especially if we resist change right now and cling to outdated beliefs. And this energy is all about and supports us in connecting with our authentic self and aspiring a sense of forward progress and momentum and doing things that resonate with our innate desires. And it allows us to experience, self-love and builds on our self-awareness, right? But there can be tension between our established comfort zones and the push to look into new ways and new spiritual paths and new ways of being in the world, On the psychological level, it wants us to examine our fears and our self-doubt and the things that are holding us back from our true potential. It asks us to step out of our comfort zone and encourages us to find the balance in meeting our goals and planning and recognizing the lessons that come up from embracing and vibing with the unknown, So it wants us to, be logical, but also mix the material with the ethereal, right, to tap into the dreamy energy of Pisces, but be stable with the Taurus energy as well. And it just supports us in vibing with life's uncertainty, because life is uncertain. The only constant in life is change, right? And it supports us in allowing ourselves to expand our understanding of our sense of self and purpose, So on the 27th of April, Mars makes an opposition to Pluto, Mercury makes a sextile square to Uranus, the moon enters void of course, and there's a super new moon as well that happens when the moon's in Pisces. So Mars's opposition to Pluto happens when Mars is in Cancer and Pluto's in Capricorn, and Mercury's semi-square to Uranus happens when Mercury's in Pisces and Uranus is in Taurus. So I've done a whole breakdown on the super new moon in Aries. Check out the playlist, it will be there. So Mars's opposition to Pluto is like an emotional digging project. It wants us to go deep into our emotions and supports us in doing so. It can be uncomfortable but ultimately liberating. We can experience intense power dynamics within ourselves and our relationships, but what this is doing is challenging us to confront our mostly deeply buried fears and desires. It wants us to be radically honest with ourselves and take personal accountability, which the main influences of this week is also wanting us to do. So it's supporting us in doing that. It wants us to focus on emotional healing, personal transformation, communication and letting go, dismantling limiting patterns, especially limiting thought and behavior patterns, and activate our inner personal power, and it can lead to profound self-discovery if we're open to it. Mercury's semi-square to Uranus as intellectual understanding. It allows our mind to be firing on all cylinders. We can be really mentally alert, and this can give us unexpected insights, and we can become more revolutionary in our thinking. But communication can become a bit unpredictable and chaotic. So negatively, it can add to the emotional intensity of the week, and this can overwhelm us. We can overstep other people's boundaries, and they can all overstep our boundaries because of power struggles, mental restlessness and scattered thinking and communication misunderstandings and emotional mental disruptions can get in the way of us being self-aware and loving on ourselves and keeping our commitments this week. So we just have to try and practice radical self-awareness and create an emotional safe space for ourselves and others to process our emotions, and our thoughts, and channel this intense energy into creative projects and relaxation. Don't forget that self-care to avoid burnout, and develop healthy communication boundaries, On the 28th of April, the moon enters Taurus. So, this brings stability to our week, and we can just be more sensual as well. Think of it like your inner emotional self wrapping up in the most luxurious soft blanket possible, grounded, secure and total zen, right? The magic of this transit is all about finding comfort and creating emotional security through practical means, and the only thing I think is practical is finding that core within and seeking that validation from within. It is there, but we just have to do that inner and shadow work and know ourselves to get there, right? But while we may crave stability right now, so it's good to nurture ourselves and others right now in healthy ways and appreciate our surroundings and the simple things in life. It can feel like, our emotional world becomes like a carefully curated, a nice sanctuary where everything's in its perfect place, but negatively we can become too stubborn and resistant to change. We may find ourselves clinging to familiar patterns, preferring comfort over growth. The key to managing the moon in Taurus energy is to balance the need for security with gentle flexibility, doing sensory experiences that soothe our soul and our mind, and treat ourselves to good food, soft textures, moments of pure grounded relaxation, sensory experiences with ourselves or our lovers or lover, and it just wants us to remember that emotional healing can come through touch, taste and tangible experiences of comfort, so allow yourself to be comforted, but do it in a healthy way. On the 29th of April, Mercury's contraparallel to Saturn is exact at 3:59, and that's the only thing that happens, and I talked about this earlier in the week. On the 30th of April, the moon enters void of course at 5:58, then the moon enters Gemini at 10:45. So when the moon dances into Gemini, our emotional world transforms into a vibrant intellectual carnival. We can crave more mental stimulation, communication and rapid fire emotional exchanges that feel like light in fast text conversations with the universe. It stimulates our thought processes, so it's good for intellectual and other forms of research, scientific and getting technical right. We may want to talk, share and explore every feeling from multiple angles, and it can be like our emotions are running multiple browser tabs simultaneously, and this brings incredible curiosity and flexibility, allowing us to navigate emotional feelings with romantical mental agility and flexibility. But negatively, because of the emotional overwhelm and potential scattered energy, we may struggle to sit with deep feelings, preferring to intellectualize everything. The key is to balance the incredible mental flexibility that the moon in Gemini brings with genuine emotional presence. So the best use of this energy is to embrace our inner communication wizard and let our emotions flow through our words and our connections, being open to newness in our relationships. So as we move into May, the Sun's in Aries, the Moon's in Gemini, Mercury's in Pisces, Venus is in Pisces, Mars in Cancer, Jupiter's in Taurus, Saturn's in Pisces, Uranus is in Taurus, Neptune's in Pisces, Pluto's in Capricorn, Chiron's in Pisces. All of these are direct, right? None of them are in retrograde, and the Moon's North Node is retrograde in Pisces. So on the 1st of May, there's a crescent moon. Mercury makes a quintile to Pluto, and the Sun makes a semi-square to the Moon's North Node, and this happens when Mercury's in Pisces and Pluto's in Capricorn. The Sun's semi-square to the Moon's North Node happens when the Sun's in Aries and the Moon's North Node is in Pisces. So the crescent moon invites us to vibe with new beginnings and focus on emotional growth and intention setting. Mercury's quintile to Pluto helps us experience increased intuition and mental clarity, allowing for transformative conversations or insights that can lead to seriously next level deep changes in the way that we think, our perspective. The Sun's semi-square to the Moon's North Node suggests a tension between your ambitions and emotional needs, and we can feel pull in different directions, with external demands conflicting with our desire for personal happiness right now. But this tension, conflict, can serve as a motivator for growth if we approach it with mindfulness. And the best use of today's energy is to set intentions align with our deeper emotional desires and life goals, and spend time on things that help us develop connections with our loved ones and prioritize our personal development, ensuring that we balance our nurturing our roots and reaching for our goals, right? On the 2nd of May, Uranus sextiles the Moon's North Node. The Moon enters void, of course, at 2:38, and Venus makes a conjunction to Neptune at 6:07. So Uranus' sextile to the Moon's North Node happens when Uranus is in Taurus and the Moon's North Node is in Pisces. Venus' conjunction to Neptune happens when they're both in Pisces, right? So Uranus' sextile to the Moon's North Node allows us to do the things that align with our life path, and that's the main focus of this week, encouraging us to break free from stagnant routines and our comfort zone, and this can lead to exciting developments in both our professional and personal lives. It wants us to be in tune with ourselves and to think outside of the box. We can find that our intuitive insights right now guide us towards choices that feel authentic and fulfilling, allowing us to step into our future with confidence. And it just wants us to be open to new experiences that will enhance our growth, encouraging us to trust our instincts and take calculated risks. Later in the day, Venus's conjunction to Neptune supports us with being creative and being sensitive, so it allows us to be more creative as we wind down the week, right? And it allows us to be more dreamy and idealistic and connect with ourselves and others on the emotional, psychological and spiritual levels. But we just need to watch out once again for escaping into our intoxicating substances and over idealizing situations and people, and this can lead to disillusionment if reality doesn't match our expectations. The magic of this transit is in balancing our dreams with our practical reality, the commitments that we have to our families, to ourselves, to our careers and stuff like that, and use this energy to manifest a vision that resonates with our true self while nurturing genuine connections. On the 3rd of May, the Moon enters Cancer, Sun makes a semi-square to Saturn, and Chiron enters Aries, and I've done a whole separate audio about this. So the Sun semi-square to Saturn happens when the Sun's in Aries and Saturn's in Pisces. So the Moon in Cancer allows us to be nurturing, right? And it can be like a protective blanket wrapped around our entire being. Our intuition can go on overdrive, and we can find ourselves craving emotional safety, deep connection and moments of tender vulnerability. It can motivate our emotional intelligence, and we can become a master of reading subtle emotional undercurrents, almost like having emotional superpowers, you know, and our family connections can feel more important to us, and the inner need to care and be cared about can become primary, you know, primary in the way that we speak, you know, feelings can become our primary emotional language, but we just need to watch out, because we can just, it adds to us being overwhelmed, right? And we can feel extra sensitive, and memories and past experience can come to our mind, right? And this can just make us feel a bit insecure and vulnerable. So we have to try and maintain healthy boundaries while allowing ourselves to feel deeply and transform our vulnerability into our greatest strength. And a lot of the time, our vulnerabilities are only weaknesses because we ignore them and run away from them, right? Escaping into drugs, drink, and intoxicating relationships and self-destructive habits, right? And I know it can be hard to get out of, I'm not saying that, but this energy allows us to become self-empowered, you know, and to continue on our personal development and inner and shadow work. The Sun semi-square to Saturn helps us to become more disciplined this week, but it can create tension between our desires and the responsibilities that weigh on us, and it motivates us to rethink our goals and the steps necessary to achieve them, you know. And it's essential as we go through this period, right, to maintain a practical mindset while remaining open to constructive criticism from myself and others. A lot of the time with criticism, you know, the truth can hurt, and it may not be the truth when others criticise us, or even when we criticise ourselves, but being open to it can show us the things we need to work on, right? And by vibing with this energy and using it to focus on projects and overcome setbacks, you know, by building that self-resilience and self-love, because self-love, forgiveness and acceptance is important, as well as awareness. So yeah, this week is all about taking charge and rolling with the tides, you know. So yeah, that's the end of this week's weekly Scopes. I'm Amani, your holistic astrological life coach. Take care and see you next week.